Oh, they do vegan. You know, you get vegan cheese and all that. It's mental. I'll fling it all over after.
And what's the procedure for people to put money on a books?
So you go on the government website. You just put how to pay a prisoner money, and then on there you need their name, the date of birth, and their prison number.
All right. So, and can people send money from around the world, or do they have to be
Yeah.
in the UK?
No. I think you can use it around the world. I'm not 100% sure on that one because when I was in there, you used to be able to send, I think it's postal orders or something from, or you used to be able to send cash because I used to send it abroad, but I'm not sure on that one actually. I'll have to look into that.
All right. We've got almost 3,000 watching now. I'm going to put Fran's YouTube link in the live chat. And a lot of people have joined the stream and perhaps have not seen the previous several streams we've done in the last couple of days and are asking questions that we've already addressed. But let me just give a recap before we resume. So for people who are following and supporting Julia, who's done over a dozen episodes on this channel, many of us were startled and worried when a couple of days ago she was arrested at Bristol Airport. We did not know she was coming to this country, and we would have advised her against it. Earlier that week, she just announced that she had done a DNA test and it matched. So she was on a high, and the international media were reporting about this match. And then after she got arrested, they were all saying, you know, the fake Maddie, the stalker, etc. She's committed these alleged criminal offences. Well, anyway, that culminated with her getting moved from Bristol to Leicester, which is where the alleged offences occurred, because that's where the McCanns live. And then today she was in court. There was 4 counts, 4 separate incidences, and they said there's been a pattern on WhatsApp and socials, as well as the doorstepping. And they also said that it applies to the siblings as well. So there's 4 potential victims. So the person who met Julia at the airport, the 60-year-old lady, she was arrested with her, but she was released today on bail. But they are holding Julia, and Julia has been sent now from Leicester to a proper prison, because here in the UK, if you're on remand, unsentenced, it is not a separate prison that you go to, which is called a jail in America. People are unsentenced, and people who are sentenced can end up in the very same prisons. So that is where we are at. And Fran, who's been a friend of the channel for years, who came and told her story here, and is also in my new book, Sit Downs with Female Gangsters, whole chapter on her. She has come on tonight to answer your questions, and there are tons of them still coming in unanswered. We've got until about 9:30 until the next show starts. So we've got a good 2 hours to try and go over every possible detail of what Julie might be going through right now. We'll have to put Jen to the top of this, of course. Being the fashionista, fashion victim, I would like to know what clothes they would give her. Prison clothes, or
not ones you'd like. I've even got the shorts and the vest as well in this box. I've got some stuff, Shaun. So that'd just be a grey tracksuit. And the worst bit is, you know, like tracksuits normally have the elastic at the bottom. These don't, so they just sort of come out. They're horrible. So she'd have her clothes obviously that she was wearing. If she's come with a suitcase and she's got some clothes with her, she will be entitled to them. They'll give them, if she gets in too late tonight, she'll get them first thing in the morning. Other than that, it's like blue horrible little shorts, blue horrible vest, and a grey tracksuit, and some really ugly pumps that your mum used to put you in when you was like 4.
Can you buy additional clothes from the prison?
Yeah, so they have like a charity shop. So like I lost loads of weight when I was in prison, so I gave all my clothes that I had to this shop. Like, so you just donate it, and then the other prisoners that have no money, they could go and buy my old Boss jumper for like £3. So they can get clothes in there.
A lot of people have asked about mental health, and Deb Darb has said, I worked as a nurse in a male prison for a short time. There are more people with mental health issues in there than anything. Very scary all around. It's no picnic and no places for Julia to be. Now, Julia, we did an episode on the meds they'd put her on as a kid, and it was this wicked combination of psychotropics with side effects such as memory erasure. And I've never seen anything like it so potent to be used on a child, which is another thing that made us very suspicious about her origin and what she's been through. And she has had mental health problems over the years. She was in a good place when she came on the channel. And I know being incarcerated can knock your mental health back. So several questions have come in about mental health screening. Would that have happened to her already? You know, would she be being watched closely because of the circumstances of a previous mental health issues?
Yeah, so for anyone that goes in on the first night, you're under 24 hours observation anyway. So obviously people can come in very vulnerable. When you first go into reception, you will see a doctor. You'll have a chat with a doctor. It's not so much about mental health. It's sort of like, you know, are you okay? Are you on any medication? Because they then have to contact the doctors to get confirmation. And then by the next day, you know, they'll get given their medication, well, not in hand, but you know, you go to the meds queue. If she comes in a bad state, they might put her straight on the mental health ward. So like Sen didn't really have one, but Bronzefield did. It was like a little landing, like a little wing of its own, separated from like the other end of the prison. It's not a nice place to be. I think that's even worse than being mixed in with other people. But I mean, I had no idea about mental health until I went to prison. Like, you know, it's true. There's so many different levels, and it blew me away, like how bad it is inside. She will get to see a mental health worker. It just depends on how she behaves when she gets in there, whether it's a massive concern to the officers or not.
Yeah, where I was housed, it was prison became by default the biggest house of the mentally ill when, after One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest came out and there was outrage in the public and they closed a lot of the mental hospitals down, they all drifted into the prison system. So the amount of meds that were being handed out to the prisoners was astronomical. You see guys doing the Thorazine shuffle, some, you know, seriously mentally ill people just drooling on themselves and stuff like that, and mumbling. It's really sad to think that, you know, a lot of society's most vulnerable people end up self-medicating on street drugs and then criminalized and then end up in the prison system because they're not given any help by society, the tools to you know, avoid those scenarios. And then they become commodities, don't they? They're just warehoused. The prisons get 60,000 a year, £60,000, $60,000 a year of taxpayers' money, and they just become commodities to the private prisons and all of these parasitic entities. All right, so Pam's saying, if you get charged, do you only need to do half the time on good behavior? So my understanding is on these 4 counts, Fran, each one carries a maximum 12-month sentence. So if they went super aggravated on Julia and stacked them all, the maximum sentence she could possibly get would be 4 years. And under the UK prison rules, would that mean the maximum sentence she could possibly serve would be half of the 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends if she goes guilty straight away. If she puts in a guilty plea and gets 4 years, she gets a third off that. So like I got 11 years, but because I went guilty, it got dropped to 7 years, 4 months, and then she'll serve half of that. So if she goes guilty, she'll get a third off the 4 years. So she'll probably do about a year and a half.
So does the clock start ticking as soon as she's arrested? Does she get back time?
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as she goes into police custody, that's every night is a day off her sentence.
Lady Roses, will Julie get a tablet that she can use to email from if money is put on her books?
No, I know they do it in some of the men's prisons, but normally what happens is I'll send someone an email, they'll print it off. If you put a reply sheet, they'll put that in with the envelope, they'll post it through the door. If you sent one in the morning, she should get that latest the next morning, and then she'll just write on the reply sheet, put it in the post box, and then they scan it over and email it back to you.
So this question about the DNA, then, I'll take this one. Will the DNA take long? Will that have to be brought up in court before sentencing her? And a lot of people are asking, you know, as to whether I think she is. Madeleine McCann, which ties into this question. So, Jean, there was an article that came out in the Mail this morning that I did a live stream on. And that article said that because of the definition of her crime, she will be DNA tested automatically. Is that usually the case, Fran, that people in this age are DNA tested? Do they take a swab?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. Well, they would at the police station maybe, but for like for their records, but not in prison or anything like that. And that's just more for like the police station will do it more for their records because then they've got it if a crime happened and your DNA was at the scene.
Okay, so at the time of the original arrest, then when the cops had it, that's when the DNA would be taken.
Yeah.
So that's what the Mail said, and the Mail then added that now they've got this fresh DNA, it would enable the police to run it against the McCanns and get to the bottom of this. And even detractors of Julia are saying, for God's sake, it costs £60 to do a DNA test. They've spent almost £20 million on the Madeleine McCann investigation. Why on earth wouldn't they just do this bloody DNA test and put this thing to rest? Because look at the thousands they're spending now on arresting, housing, processing Julia. But, you know, this does create work for the legal vampires. They've got vested interests. And for the people who are asking me whether I think she is Madeleine McCann, Julia was brought to this channel by John Wedger, ex-cop out of London, Scotland Yard detective for decades. And when he contacted me, he said, Shaun, I believe Madeleine McCann is dead. But Julia is a lovely person, as you will see when you speak to her. Take no notice of what it says in the media. And she deserves to tell a story. And I think she does deserve to tell a story. And people who say she's not are just busybodies and they're against freedom of speech. I've never, ever said she's Madeleine McCann. I've said she has the right to tell her story. And I want you, the viewers, to take away from her own words whatever she says and for you to decide. So if this DNA test is expedited now because of the situation that's just happened, the arrest, and we know one of the theories is that Julia knew if she came to the UK, there was a risk she would be arrested and the DNA test would come and it would force the issue. Because she seems confident that she is Maddie. Yeah, maybe that was a strategy by Julia. So let's hope that it does get resolved soon, and we know either way. So if it did come out that she was Maddie, obviously Julia would be over the moon, and there would be a whole new way of looking at this case. If it comes out that she's not, at least she's going to have closure. But I imagine that she's going to, you know, the mental turbulence she's going through right now must be overwhelming her. So will the DNA have to be brought up in court before she was sentenced? See, that's beyond my pay grade to answer that. I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, all right, let me go over to another question then. So if a prisoner is deported from the UK, if that were to happen to Julia, would she be banned from being able to return to visit the UK?
Yeah, they're not allowed back in the UK, ever.
So in my case in America, it was in my plea bargain, I would be banned for life from returning to America. In one of my friend's cases, DJ Mike Hot Wheels, it was in his plea bargain, he would be banned from 5 years for returning to America. And then after 5 years, he tried to return to America. Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. All right, let me see. We've got almost 50 unanswered questions. How many attempts do you have at bail? Well, if you're P. Diddy, and you've got $1 billion, you have attempts every bloody week. Have you seen people get repeated attempts at bail in the UK?
No, I think you normally just go for bail. I don't know if you can go a couple of times. I think normally I think in your first case, your solicitor will go for bail. And then obviously you get rejected, you go to prison. But once you're in prison, you can apply for bail because my Cody, her parents put up £10,000 and she got out. I know a lot of people don't believe that in the UK, but it's a fact. Like, my Cody did get out.
Someone's asking whether there's a risk, if Julia's mental health deteriorated, that they would put her in a mental health facility or she would be sectioned.
No, because there's women in there that would walk around with like what do you call it, the wash laundry bags, and say they were their dogs. They'd smash their faces in with flasks, they'd rip their own face apart. Like, that is sectioned material, and they were still in prison. So when I said to a prison officer, why are these people not getting help, and they'd say, because the beds are all full in the mental hospital, they're not safe to be on the street, so they put them in prison. So
Wow.
yeah, your answer to that would probably be no.
Wow. Why was she coming to the UK and who was she visiting? So I don't know still why she was coming to the UK. The person she was visiting was arrested with her at the airport. And if she'd have run it by us, we would have told her not to come to the UK. And, we had no idea that she was going to visit the McCanns or contact the McCanns. And if she'd ever have brought that up with us, we would have absolutely told her not to do anything of that kind, because she was just setting herself up for the legal problems that have culminated with this arrest. Yeah. All right. So are Julia's actions really enough to get classified as stalking harassment? She's just been trying to find out who she is. So I did spend a considerable time on a few of the previous live streams, Mimo, going over the definition of it. And when she first got arrested at the airport, I was thinking, this is silly. You can't just arrest someone at an airport. But now that they've come forward and give all of the incidences, there's the doorstepping, there was the vigil that she attended, and they're saying that there's been repeated communications through WhatsApp, Instagram, etc., not just to the parents, but to the kids, and phone calls. And it does appear to me within the definition, the legal definition, that they can apply that to her at this point. It seems a weak case. I'm not defending the prosecution here. It seems a really weak case and an absolute tragedy, because if you look at the motive, this lady is just trying to find out who the bloody hell she is. I mean, can you imagine not knowing who your parents really are? How that would affect your life. My mum was adopted. It devastated her. And, I've seen it play out in real time. So I'm hoping that this DNA test will go through and she'll know one way or the other, just to get that closure. So it's not just in her mind all the time, stressing her out. Can they confirm she's the daughter with her DNA test alone that they did have to arrest? Well, sir, we are hoping that is the case. Do you think she will stay strong and plead her case no matter what the charge? She's a warrior. She's got the fighting spirit. She's come on here, and she's basically turned herself into a private investigator on her own case. She could get a job as a private investigator when she gets out, I think. All right, here's a good question. It's come up several times. Fran, do you think that the media attention and support from us, with that, it will make them go lighter, or can that also work in the opposite direction?
I mean, it can. I mean, but I'd like to think that any decent judge is just going to look at this and go, you know what, time served, whether it's a couple of months, this is ridiculous, send her back, ban her from the UK. I mean, I'm not the judge, but I'd be surprised if she got a really harsh sentence. I mean, I just don't think it's enough to warrant being in prison. People do a lot worse, and they still manage to be outside. I just think it's quite sad.
So JJ's just jumped on. Is Julia definitely going to prison? JJ, Julia is in prison. So that's what we're talking about right now. All right. So drugs in US prisons are easily accessible. Is that the case in the UK?
Yeah, there's so many drugs in prison. It's crazy. It's even on the enhanced wings, where it's like privilege and stuff, they still get them on there, whether it be through visits, officers throwing it over the fence.
Yeah, you've got drones now. You've got dead pigeons, the substances inside the dead pigeons.
Tennis balls. People doing the rottles, girls going out on rottles and then bringing them back in.
Yeah, and that leads to another point as well then. So how invasive are the strip searches for the females?
they're not a thing anymore. Well, in the two prisons I went in, it's actually illegal to strip search a prisoner. Because when I went in years ago, I think it's like 2005 or whatever, you got strip searched, like you undress the top half and then the bottom half. And even when I got out of prison, they strip searched me when I left. So when I went in this time around, I was like, oh God. And anyway, obviously they didn't do it. And then you start talking to the girls, and one girl was actually suing the prison because they strip searched her, but with no. So they've got to have a lot of information, and then the governor has to sign it off to say that I want this person strip searched. If there's not enough evidence, so it has to be like 3 different sources, not 3 girls that hang out together of intelligence. Oh, she's got a phone or she's got drugs. Then they're allowed to do that. So, but you don't get it anymore just going in the prison.
Yeah, I mean, where I was at in Arizona, it's quite invasive. Fortunately, the finger wave was ruled unconstitutional because it had led to assaults. I'm going to phrase this very carefully for YouTube. The finger wave is where they put on a rubber glove and inserted a finger into your lower cavity and wiggled it around to see if you had anything in there. That actually existed in Arizona at some point. When I was arrested, which was 2002, they still had the foreskin search. And I was like, are you serious?
Wow.
They were like, yep, there might be drugs in there. Pull it back, pull it back. And but the most common search was just you're completely naked. Guard looks in your mouth, ears, armpits, raise your man parts, turn around, bend over, spread your buttocks wide open, and cough.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're looking right up your backside to see if you're smuggling anything in. There are people who specialize in smuggling called mules. They get paid a percentage of what they smuggle in. There's a thing called a quarter roll, a roll of quarter coins in America. So smugglers had things wrapped in measurements that were called quarter rolls, and the mules would pride themselves on how many quarter rolls they could insert and wouldn't peek out during these strip searches.
God.
And you'd see them coming back from visit, just walking all wobbly.
Oh.
But yeah, every visit, strip search, soon as you're arrested, strip search, going to the chow hall. If you're working in the chow hall, if they think you might be stealing food, strip search. Some days I was strip searched like up to 3 times.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. But part of the consequences, you got to accept your karma carefully.
You've got a choice, have you? You just have to get on with it.
Exactly. So Mad Eye Pete, did you witness any kind of corruption between the officers and prisoners?
Yeah, there's there's a lot of female and male that had relationships with prisoners. You hear stuff of people bringing it in, and you kind of it's true as well. The things that some of the officers used to say. Even one officer said to us when we was working outside, he was like, "Oh, I'll bring you a bottle of wine." Like he goes at Christmas, because we was all working outside the front of the prison. So they're just, yeah, it's a lot.
Do prisoners ever get pregnant from staff?
They have done. I've not witnessed it myself, but just when I got to Send, the second prison, it had not long happened. An officer had got a female pregnant in there.
Wow, how does that? What's the consequences of that?
So I do believe he went to jail, but in the first prison where this woman officer was having a relationship with this prisoner, she was on probation, and I think what they'd done, because it's part private, they can't have bad publicity, so they knew about it. They knew that she was bringing stuff in, so they failed her probation rather than actually got her done.
Yeah, they do want to hide these things. They don't want them getting out into the media. There was quite a XXX video of a female staff member in the men's prison that made international headlines last year, I think it was. Do you know what the outcome of that case ended up? Because I can't remember. What did she end up?
I think she got 10 months or something, didn't she? If I'm right.
Did she?
I think it was 10 months, maybe a year. Obviously, she won't even do that much because she'll come out on tag. So she'll only do like, I don't know, a third of it.
So Frankie's wondering whether once people are on her list and phone calls can be established, will they be monitored and recorded?
Yeah. So no one can call her. She can only call home, and especially on remand, they all have phones in the cell because obviously sometimes they use it to incriminate. People are stupid. They talk about them doing drugs and stuff inside, and that's how some people have been caught. They've got out of prison and then got another charge afterwards and come back because they've been caught from the recordings. The police have asked for the recordings from the phone.
So how easy is it to get a contraband phone in prison?
It's easy, but you've got to pay money sometimes. Like, it really just depends. Like, the time, but this is when I sort of left the time. I can't do my hand. So the tiny little ones about that big, they used to go for about £250, and then if you wanted like a iPhone, you're looking at anything from 1,000 upwards.
An iPhone is 1,000 upwards.
Upwards, yeah. Some of them are like 1,500. It's crazy money in there.
What other things are available on the contraband market?
So like tobacco, and then like medication, like prescribed medication, obviously class A's, pretty much anything you want. Spice was a massive one in there, cannabis, even girls were doing like ecstasy in there. Honestly, it's that literally there's a lot like, in comparison to sort of my day-to-day life, it is flooded. Like, there's so much, obviously such and such takes such and such, but in there it's like every sort of other person.
People are asking what kind of jobs you had over the course of your incarceration and what job options would be available to Julia.
So for the first week she won't work. She'll just be locked up except for association time. And then my first job was in the gym, but you didn't actually work. You just had to go there for like 3 hours and do whatever. If you wanted to sit there and talk or you wanted to train. Then I was a recovery mentor, so I'd help other prisoners that were coming off drugs, and they didn't trust the officers to talk, so they talked to us one to one and run little groups. I've done induction work where you meet and greet the women that come into the prison. You can take them back to their cell at one and then just support them, which I really enjoyed because, when people come in a nervous wreck and you sort of watch them grow and support them, it's nice because when I went in, I never had that. I was a listener, which I was trained by the Samaritans, so that was a voluntary job. So if a prisoner was suicidal at 2 a.m, me and whoever was on duty that night would get called out and we'd get locked in a cell. That sometimes could be scary because if you go to someone that's got a bit of mental health, you're locked in a room, and if you're done, if the puppers with the keys are the other side of the prison, you could be sat there for 45 minutes waiting, and if they're like a ticking time bomb, you're just like, get me out.
So what was your absolute favorite job then?
I think the induction, meeting and greeting the women, like the recovery mentor was good, but that was just different. It was just going and checking on the women. So one girl, she was like 18, but she was shaking. She was so petrified, but it's just being able to just go, because I got a passport. I actually sat over there, I used to walk around with a passport. So you was allowed to go anywhere in the prison. I could go on any landing with this. So you could just go and support them the next day, go and check up on them and help them, get them to do all the things they needed to do, how to add people on and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good karma. Lulu, I hope she has emotional and legal support. Well, she's definitely got legal support, and they named a lawyer in the press today. A good defense lawyer may get her the answer she needs if the McCanns don't manage to sway things. All right, so Mr. Balding is wondering, what was the worst improvised weapon you witnessed inside?
Do you know what? I could honestly say I didn't see anybody. I mean, again, I've heard in other female establishments they'd make like little tools and stuff with razor blades, but I don't think I ever saw one.
And who were the highest profile prisoners you ever housed with?
Joanne Dennehy. There was Sharon Carr. I think she was one of the UK's. So Joanne Dennehy was a serial unaliver. Sharon Carr was one of the youngest people to take someone's life at the time, I think. Who else was in there? The girl that Phil Potts, but obviously I know her as Lulu. She was my neighbour, the one that all the kids died in the fire, and they tried to do like an insurance job, and then it ended up killing the 6 kids.
Oh,
And
that's
then
terrible.
yeah, and just somewhat like some girls that have been on the news for unaliving their children or saying their partner had done it and stuff.
You want to know